I'm Connor Rogers alongside maybe Jamar Chase, maybe Matthew Berry. Yeah, look at that release package.
Guard me, try to guard me.
Press
The
coverage
key,
or off
yeah,
coverage?
either way.
Yeah.
You gotta push.
Yeah.
Yeah, the key is
Shoot
the
the
hands,
hands, yeah.
exactly.
Look at that.
Don't worry, please.
He's been
I use
working
my
on his
size
game.
and speed combo
Yeah.
to get open.
Matthew did a rendition standing up before, which was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my
to
life.
not get
It's
mic'd
Jamar
up.
Chase.
Please, come on.
I call him once.
Yeah,
I call him once.
to call me once, I appreciate that.
There we go. His
Appreciate
friends
that.
call him
Listen,
that.
hey,
I know
we're-
his friends.
yeah, well, give me the ball. Look, I'm open. Look at me, I'm always open. I'm always up and open. There we go.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, the always open Fantasy Football Happy Hour.
Tom, let's go ahead. What day grade would you put on me? Break down the tape real quick.
You might get a camp tryout.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you might get it into rookie camp.
Yeah,
and you might
it's-
sneak onto a roster. Like
Remind me of-
Jaleel McLaughlin did it.
Yeah.
Xavier
Jack
Gibson did it.
Nicholson as the Joker. With a
A little bit of that. A little bit of that. Well, I feel like, you know what I am, like, you know how you always talk about the fact that, like, yeah, I mean, come on, like, you can't really, honestly,
Wow.
you can't look.
Whoa, look at that.
I mean, come on.
You can't tell the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just tell, like, honestly, seriously, who's who?
Oh, that's
I can't even tell.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
have
it's
it.
like,
I
no,
can't
me.
have
I'm going to tell my kids that's Jamar Chase on the right.
If you're ever wondering what it's like before we're on the air,
Yeah.
when multiple people are trying to mic him up, he practices release package off the line of scrimmage. It's the hardest job in the biz.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't want to get chipped off the line. There's no question. I mean, I liken myself to. You remember how, like, the argument coming out of college that Jerry Rice just wasn't fast,
Right.
You know, that was why
a 4.6 guy.
Right, he was a
fast?
4.6 guy. That's, you know, but like then he got on the field and he was quicker than you thought,
Right.
like, you know, and just elite route running, and that's what I
Yes.
sort of feel like I have. I'm more quick than fast.
Yes.
You're not going to be a combine hero. We know
No,
that.
100%. No. Like the 3-cone, don't look at my 3-cone drill numbers.
man.
But you know, like I'm a big-bodied guy. I can, you know, Anquan
Right.
Bolden-ish kind
was
of, you know,
about to say,
physically, use my
Anquan Bolden.
physicality to,
Yeah.
you know, box out guys. Yeah, I'm always open. Like, just I know there's two defenders draped over me, but like, throw me the ball, I'll come down with it.
Oh,
Maybe Connor Rogers. Maybe we should call the Vikings.
They
Yeah.
might
They might
need
need
some
somebody.
wide receiver
See what
help.
I just did there?
Yeah,
That was called
segue.
segue, Jay
Great
Croucher.
segue into our lovely
Threw it
waiver
right
wire
by
day.
Connor.
I know,
His
right?
little slider.
Yeah. Swung it.
Austin Riley
I just
did a
watched
one
it
last
drive
night.
right down the
Can't
middle.
get that one.
Oh, please, not that. Anyways, a lot to do today. It's waiver wire day. Very busy waiver wire day, and because of that, Justin Jefferson managers, you drink free. We're sorry. We feel for you. Hopefully, we're here to help you.
Why can't we have nice things? Why can't we have nice things?
I know. First time he's ever really been hurt as well. He's one of those guys who just seems indestructible because he's just seemingly not of this planet, but he's going to be out at least 4 weeks, hopefully not too much longer than that. And we'll talk about what to do in his place. I mean, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborn are the two obvious ones, but there'll be a lot of other wide receivers on the waiver wire.
You've done this since it was invented. Is this a bad injury season, unlike we've seen in a bit? It just has that feel
Has
to
that
it.
feel to it? I mean, I haven't looked at any of the data, but it does feel like every year there are injuries. But it does feel like this year there are bigger name guys that are going down, right? And so, I mean, like, and you even started that way, right? I mean, again, with Cooper Kupp, like, missing the first 4 weeks, Jonathan Taylor missing the first 4 weeks. For people that drafted in the first 2 weeks of August, you're like, we haven't even started. And all of a sudden, like, you know, 2 of our guys are out, and then, you know, and then Nick Chubb goes down. He's out for the year. I mean,
Saquon.
Eckler, Saquon. I mean, yeah, whatever. Deshaun Watson. I mean, like, it just feels like on and on and on. Every week there's somebody. What's crazy is that it took me a second to even remember Nick Chubb was out for the year, because it has been such a horrible cycle. It is a violent sport. It is one of the reasons why when I play, I'm so shifty. I just, you know, very
yourself.
Emmitt Smith, like I don't get hit dead on. That's the thing, you know.
Right.
It's just, everyone's just like, how have you been able to play so long? I never take a direct hit. I'm always kind of shifting. You know what I mean? And so I a lot on the side, a lot in the hip, and that kind of stuff. But never want to get like full on. You know, that's the if you just keep shifting, it's hard to like get a really bead on you.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, here's the thing: is that with particularly the running back position, and obviously we're talking about a wide receiver here, but the running back position, I mean, there's just so much attrition there. We saw what happened to Nick Chubb. We saw what happened to other guys going down. There's about a 4% chance in any given game that a running back will get hurt. meaningfully. So that's pretty significant when you think about it. And Justin Jefferson, who has been so durable, he's had a little couple of scares with cramping.
Before we get into Justin Jefferson real quickly, but again, like you think about T. Higgins. I mean, you think about some of these guys that like every week there's been somebody that was drafted in the first 3 rounds.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams out for the year. I mean, again, another one that's been absolutely brutal. And then there've been the crazy part is that the healthiest J.K. Dobbins out for the year, right? I mean, like another guy, like you're just like, but the craziest part is that the healthiest guy is Chris McCaffrey. Right?
Bizarro world.
Chris McCaffrey's indestructible.
I think that points to the idea that we've talked about before, is that in fantasy and in betting as well, like fade the idea that someone's injury prone, because you're injury prone until you're not, and you're not injury prone until you get hurt. And someone like Saquon Barkley a year ago coming into the season, no one wanted a part of him because of all the injuries. Then he's just basically fully healthy last season. Now he's hurt again. Christian McCaffrey was fully healthy last season, fully healthy this season as well after dealing with injuries for 3 years. So, I mean, it just is what it is.
Right. Darren Waller's been out there for every game, just hasn't seemed like it.
I was going to make that joke about Najee Harris.
Yeah, same thing. He's just seemed injured.
Yeah. With that,
but anyway, all of it is brutal. Let's get into Justin Jefferson. And
let's jump into the Roto-World player news.
Yeah, Roto-World player news available at rotoworld.com, of course, on a company man.
And listen, obviously the Justin Jefferson news, real soul-crushing. He's placed on IR with the hamstring. We got to hear from his head coach, Kevin O'Connell, yesterday on the status of Jefferson.
He's down today. He obviously is one of the most ultra competitors I've ever met, and shoot, he was trying to go back in the game as it was yesterday. So we're going to have to medically make a good decision and help, kind of almost protect him from himself a little bit in a way where we got to take care of him and get him back to 100%.
So that's ultimately what the Vikings do as they place him on IR. We don't know if this will be a minimum stay. We don't know if this will be. And right now, here's the reality too, guys. The Vikings have 1 win.
Thank you.
They have 1 win.
That's the exact thing.
We don't know where their season is going, but it hasn't been good so far. They've lost a lot of close games, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day in the NFL, Jay. Okay. How do they rush him back?
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say that, that is the problem. We saw what happened with Cooper Kupp last season, where he had an injury where it felt like he was probably going to come back at the end of the year if the Rams were in contention, but they weren't. And this Vikings team, they have new management the past couple of years, and it seems like they've wanted to kind of rebuild. And Kirk Cousins, his contract situation, like they will want a new quarterback.
Yes.
And they can get one at the top of the draft. So I would think that they're going to let Justin Jefferson take as long as he needs, Matthew.
At Chicago this week, he's missing the next 4 games. We know that at a minimum. And here's the Vikings' next 4 games. At Chicago, home to San Francisco, at Green Bay, at Atlanta. Those 2 tough road, at Green Bay, good defense. At Atlanta, a much better defense than they get credit for. The only quote-unquote winnable game is at Chicago. Again, you don't love their chances against San Francisco. On the road at Green Bay and on the road at Atlanta, you could see both those games being losses. So there's a chance, guys, that they are, at the end of this, they are 1-7, they are 2-6, something like that, to your point. Exactly. Kirk Cousins has been rumored going to the Jets. Is there a quarterback? Because, again, he's owed like over $40 million, some insane number. Yeah. They want to move on from, or if nothing else, a really restructured deal, given the price of quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think Kirk's taking a pay cut. And so you just wonder, hey, Caleb Williams out there. Drake May's out there.
Yep.
We're 1-7. You know what, Justin? You just take your time. We're going to go back, and maybe they do trade Kirk Cousins to a team like the Jets or something like that, right? And get something out of it. And, if the Jets say, we'll take the rest of his contract and give you a 2 for him, do the Vikings say no? And they've lost Jefferson for 4 weeks? 26% of the Vikings targets are now available. Anyway, we'll talk about the impact on the Vikings, but there's a chance there's a non-zero chance we've seen the last of Justin Jefferson this year.
Yeah, that's definitely in play. I do think he will come back, though, just because I think the NFC is just so weak outside of 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Lions. There's no one else who really scares you in those last couple of wild card spots that don't go to whoever doesn't win the division out of Dallas and Philadelphia. I think if the Vikings can just tread water, and look, these games, they'll probably be dogs, at Green Bay, at Atlanta without Jefferson, but those are winnable games. I've never seen Jordan Love or Desmond Ridder lately. Then it's, at Denver, Chicago again before the bye week. Like, they could tread water. The only,
they beat Chicago. They beat Chicago this week. They split Green Bay and Atlanta. Say they lose to San Francisco, and so then you're looking at their 3-4.
No, they're 3-6. But then it's home New Orleans, at Denver, home Chicago. They could get to 5-7 or something like that.
They could get to 5 and 7 to bye, and then you're like, you're still alive.
That's not what they want. Yeah. You don't want to be a 7-win team if you're Minnesota.
Well, I think they're kind of the definition of one. I think the team is still not bad.
Then you're the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we've been a 7-win, 7 to 9 win team every single day, and then you're like in quarterback hell. And
most people say purgatory. I like that you said hell.
No, hell.
Yeah, no,
it's hell.
It's more accurate.
So
the question is with Jordan Addison, what his ceiling is now, because he is the big beneficiary. I know that KJ Osborn's playing a ton of snaps. Jordan Addison's better than KJ Osborn. I think they're going to lean on him more. And so obviously, if he's on any waiver wire, he's your number one pick.
He's like, he's not 100% rostered. He's rostered in most leagues, and certainly if he's out there, he would be my number one pick. But why don't we go to the wide receiver waiver, and we'll talk about Davante Adams, and we'll talk about Anthony Richardson and all the other injuries. It's a huge injury week. We will get into that James Conner news as well when we get to the waiver wire positions, the waivers for those positions. But let's start here and talk about KJ Osborn. To your point, Jay, about playing a lot of snaps. 91% snap rate this year for KJ Osborn. Believe it or not, he's actually tied for the team league in red zone targets. He's had 15 career games with 6 or more targets. He's averaging 15.5 fantasy points per game. And so an offense that has to throw to keep up, they've been inefficient running the ball. They haven't been able to play defense this year. And so Cousins is going to have to continue to throw. And while we like Addison to get the biggest bump, and certainly Hutchinson will be more a part of that offense as well, you can make an argument Hawkinson's the number one tight end the rest of the way. I mean, like him, because Kelsey hasn't been Kelsey in capital letters this year, and Andrews has been inconsistent. Like, there's certainly an argument that from this point forward, TJ Hawkinson's the number one tight end in fantasy. But KJ Osborn, who's available in 91% of Yahoo leagues, is my number one wide receiver target. He's going to be a top 2 wide receiver on a pass-first offense for at least the next 4 weeks.
What I really like about the Minnesota offense as well, from a fantasy perspective, is Brian Flores is blitzing over 50% of the time. So their defense is bad, and they die quickly because they're blitzing all the time, so you get the ball back straight away, which is fantastic. I don't think anyone else is blitzing more than 40%, and Brian Flores is over 50%. Rate. But Connor, what do you think of KJ Osborn as a player? Because is he actually going to take a leap? Because we talked about the snap count. He hasn't gone 50 yards in a game so far this season, and it feels like a lot of his rep is just that game against Indianapolis last year where he went off in that comeback.
I'm a little skeptical. He feels like somebody that you would like to move inside and outside, and I feel like they'd also like to do that with Jordan Addison, and you have Hawkinson who can play off the line of scrimmage. It feels like to me, and I think this piggybacks your point, the volume just cranks up for Addison and Hawkinson, and maybe even they throw a little to Cam Akers. I know that sounds crazy. Then Osborn being this hero right away.
Jefferson had 26.5% of their targets. Like a fourth of their targets went to one guy.
He gets like 40% of their yards.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, prior to week 5, he'd had at least 24 fantasy points in every game. So it's just, the fact that he's just quote unquote not earning targets, like the fact that you aren't earning targets when Justin Jefferson is on the other side of the field isn't a fair knock on KJ Osborn. And do I think he's elite? No, I don't. But do I think he's going to get a lot of run on a better than average offense? I do. And Kirk Cousins is somebody that is a good enough quarterback to get the ball and distribute him. Yes, he's living a little bit off of that Colts game, but he's not terrible. They liked him enough to let Adam Thielen walk this season. This is a playoff team last year that had Super Bowl aspirations this year, and they did not bring Adam Thielen back because of the confidence they had in Osborn taking another step, in Hawkinson, and of course the draft pick in Addison.
Which is a bad decision because apparently Adam Thielen's just Stephon Diggs now. No.
Yes, bad decision.
So for Osborn, maybe a viable flex play with Jefferson out, right?
I would think so.
That's fair.
Listen, against Chicago this week, he'll be a top 30 wide receiver.
Big part of it.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to our next one here, Rashee Rice. He's available in 61% of leagues. He goes up against the Denver defense. In Week 5 at Minnesota, Rashee Rice, 5 targets, 4 catches. Most importantly, besides the 33 yards, Barry, he caught a touchdown, and that's what Rashee Rice's best ability for Patrick Mahomes should be.
You'll win some. We're in a bar right now. You'll win some bar bets, by the way, if you say, hey, who leads the Kansas City Chiefs in red zone targets? Everyone's going to say it's Travis Kelce, and the answer is Rashee Rice. He's been targeted on over 36% of his routes this season. That includes all players, minimum 20 targets. He's just earning a target is a skill. And so the fact is that when he's running a route, that he is earning a target on over 36% of those routes, I think it's really impressive. Now, we need him to play more routes, but it feels like they're getting there. Again, that Rashee Rice, there's a connection between him and Mahomes. We've talked about this a lot, about how they worked out in the offseason, that Mahomes went to the front office and said, draft Rashee Rice for me. They have. Next 4 opponents all are above average matchups for wide receivers. Broncos, Chargers, Broncos again, and then the Dolphins. So Rashee Rice, who continues to play more snaps, as you see it there on your screen. Yes, only 30% at the Vikings. That one was a little bit weird, but he did score the touchdown. His receptions are starting to get up there in the 5, 3, 4 range. He's just, I don't know that you feel great about him this week, but this is somebody that I do think will have a significant impact in the second half of the season on one of the best passing offenses in the NFL that is about to get rolling here. I know it was a down game against the Vikings, but, again, they played Denver this week on a short week, and then the Chargers, and then Denver again.
Yep. And Rashee Rice right now has the 11th best PFF grade of any wide receiver. He's ahead of guys like Mike Evans, Chris Olave. You just watch the game. He just looks better than all these other Chiefs receivers. And the big thing for Rashee Rice is, 1, his talent, but then 2, Sky Moore, it's just not happening for Sky Moore. Line through Sky Moore, I think, for this season until he figures stuff out. Kadarius Toney as well, again, just not happening. Rice is the one guy who has the upside.
I remained obsessed with Justin Watson. I don't know why he can't get on the field more. I feel like every time he's out there, he's beating a guy deep and earning a DPI or a long pass. And maybe his just route tree is limited. I don't get what it is with Justin Watson. But what I'll tell you is I think that's an important point here is as you look at, we always talk about this talent opportunity. I think we all agree Rashee Rice, talented kid, right? And so the opportunity in yes, they spread it around a lot, but there's no one on the Chiefs other than Kelsey where you say, well, that guy demands targets. The way that with the Vikings, obviously Justin Jefferson demands targets. And so
I don't really understand what's happened to MVS, because in the AFC title game, Mahomes was like, all right, I'm throwing MVS every single time.
This year is non-factor.
Now he's had 7 catches in 5 games, so I think he is just the write-off as well. And Rice is the one guy who has the talent and the upside.
All right, and another busy offense, Lions wide receiver Josh Reynolds. He's got the Bucks. He's available in 59% of leagues, and the reason we bring this one up, Jay, is because Dan Campbell on Amon-Ra St. Brown playing Sunday, he goes, it's certainly more than questionable, closer to probable. Reynolds has been a factor in this offense. He's coming off week against Carolina, 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. He's a deep threat receiver in Ben Johnson's very effective passing game.
Yeah, and he's kind of become the embodiment of that second wide receiver who's a viable flex. He's the second guy in this offense in terms of wide receivers. Sam Laporta obviously is there as well as a pass catcher, but with Amon-Ra back, I think Josh Reynolds slides into that very Josh Reynolds-y type of role on your fantasy team, where he's the guy who's constantly on waivers and you pick up and you feel okay if he's your option. But I think Jameson Williams, his involvement ramping up, that's
that's going to happen eventually. There will be a time in the season where we're talking about Jameson Williams over Josh Reynolds, but that week ain't this week. 65 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year for Josh Reynolds, who is from Texas A&M University, Gig'em Aggies, 4 for 76 and a touchdown last week, and we don't mind the matchup at the Buccaneers.
That week 3 against the Falcons, the goose egg, got me cut in our guillotine league. So
just another reason to like Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, good.
Another reason to like Josh Reynolds.
Absolutely. All right, another Josh on here. Josh Downs, Colts wide receiver at Jacksonville, available in 91% of leagues in week 5 against the Titans. 6 targets, 6 catches, 97 yards. Josh Downs has looked much better playing with Gardner Minshew.
25% target share with Minshew this season. Anthony Richardson, we'll talk about him a little bit more when we get to quarterbacks, but the fact of the matter is Richardson's going to miss some time. Minshew will be under center, and it does feel like the passing offense is a little bit more efficient, and there is a connection between Minshew and Josh Downs. They've played 3 games together. Josh Downs has 18 receptions in those games, and for people that the Colts aren't on a lot of national TV games here, Connor, so for people that aren't familiar with Josh Downs, who wasn't a big-name rookie coming out this year, what are they getting in this kid?
Old school slot. Great with the two-way go. He can work inside, outside. Great short area target. At college, he caught everything. I know he's had some ups and downs in the pros with that so far, but he caught everything for UNC, and he's a very shifty player. He's kind of like you, Matthew, when it comes down to that. So if you're in
a young Matthew Berry, I've heard some of the announcers talk about him when he's out there. Just very shifty.
That's like the current Adam Thielen Matthew Berry. Yeah, he can still get open and still catch it.
If you're in PPR, Downs will be very, very effective. He's somebody that can easily catch 7 to 8 passes on any given day. Might not have a ton of yards, but the catches will be there.
Yeah, and Gardner Minshew, to your point, helps him more than Anthony Richardson does. Gardner Minshew doesn't have the ceiling or the upside or clearly the rushing ability of Anthony Richardson, but he's a more polished passer at this point.
Jacksonville, Cleveland, New Orleans, and then at Carolina are the next 4 games there. Cleveland's the only one that makes me a little bit nervous. New Orleans, obviously a very good defense, but Lattimore will likely be on Michael Pittman in that game. And actually the slot is where you attack the Saints because Lattimore is so good on the outside. So anyway, I like Downs. I like Downs, and I certainly like him this week against the Jags.
Our last wide receiver here, Jonathan Mingo. He's available in 92% of leagues. He's got Miami this week against Detroit. There was a lot of garbage time in this game as a whole, but he still had 7 targets, 5 catches, 48 yards. So, I mean, Matthew, the volume is there for Mingo in an offense that they're trying to find it for a young quarterback. It's a lot of Adam Thielen. They're trying to get the young receiver involved here.
Dolphins bottom 10 in terms of most wide receiver fantasy points allowed this season. We expect the Dolphins to put up a lot of points and Bryce Young's to be having to throw quite a bit in this game. So, yes, you're like, well, a lot of Mingo's production last week was junk time. I got a feeling
that's
that
the thing.
It's going to be a thing. Like, I don't think it's a fluke. And by the way, that's okay. Junk time counts in fantasy. It all counts the same. We like Jonathan Mingo here.
Yeah, and Bryce Young wasn't good against Detroit, but at least he showed that he could get to 247 yards in an NFL game, which I think was important because he wasn't really flirting with those totals previously. Mingo, I mean, he missed the week with the concussion and he missed the end of that game against Seattle with that, but before then, he's getting a ton of targets and playing a ton of snaps. Against the Saints, there was a point where he had like 8 targets for 3 yards, and it just wasn't happening, but it's him and Thielen in that offense as the wide receivers.
Jay, let's take a look at some deep league targets here. Week 6, waiver wire, of course. Commanders, wide receiver Curtis Samuel. He's available in 83% of leagues. Giants, wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, available in 76% of leagues. And the last one there, Jay, Trent Irwin of the Bengals, available in every fantasy league.
Yeah, Trent Irwin, whose value is going to depend on T. Higgins remaining out. But if he is out, with Joe Burrow and the health that he showed, all of a sudden Bengals pass catches become more interesting across the board. Curtis Samuel's a strange one, Matthew. It seems like Sam Howell's treating him as though he's Terry McLaurin, but he's not. He's Curtis Samuel. But the past 2 games, he's had 13 catches, over 100 yards, got a touchdown as well. Do you think he's going to continue to be used?
He's had at least 50 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year. Like, he's been around. They like him. He's a Carolina guy, a Ron Rivera guy. I mean, they brought him over from Carolina where they were together. And clearly, given how bad my Commanders' defense is, they're going to have to throw. And so Samuel, who's playing the slot, again, Sam Howell, who's on pace to literally set an NFL record for sacks, can't get the ball out quick enough. So a lot of Curtis Samuel stuff is in the middle of the field, line of scrimmage, just get rid of the ball quickly. Samuel, of course, has great after-the-catch speed. So in a deeper league, you could do worse than Curtis Samuel. 2 first names, always a crowd pleaser. Wan'Dale Robinson, by the way, back-to-back games now with 6 targets, a 67% snap rate last week. He continues to ramp up. Again, it looks like it's going to be a lost season for the Giants, so I think they want to build up their young players. Wan'Dale Robinson, again, was a second-round pick of Brian Daboll, like the first offensive skill player drafted by this regime. So I just, I think there's something there. 10 targets for Trent Irwin last week, by the way. He played mostly in the slot. They moved Boyd outside, which I think was a little bit surprising.
Pretty handy to do that in a game where Jamar Chase had, 192 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Still be able to get 10 targets. Is impressive.
Unbelievable. I guess everyone's always open.
To recap, let's take a look at Barry's Week 6 top wide receiver waiver targets. Number 1 there, KJ Osborn, Rashee Rice right after him, Josh Reynolds, rookies Josh Downs, and Jonathan Mingo. Here's your top 5 as we head into Week 6. All right, and with that, let's jump into the running backs because, guys, we started with brutal injury news to the wide receiver with Justin Jefferson. We start the running backs with more brutal injury news. Devon Achane will miss multiple weeks with a knee injury. He's going to get another opinion today to determine if this is an IR stint. But the bottom line here is, Matthew, for one of the most exciting rookies in all the NFL and one of the most exciting offenses, it's a big speed bump in the middle of the road.
Why can't we have nice things?
Nothing.
We were it's been such a bad year in so many different ways, but we're like, but at least we have Miami.
Yeah.
Miami's fun. They're so fun to watch. What a pleasure to watch this offense and what they're doing. And then, then Devon Achane injured, so we'll see. Could be placed on the IR. We will see. Just watch this. Look how beautiful this is. Look at him just running back. Look at these Giants, just like they gave up, with 20, because they're like, we're not catching this kid. We're not catching him.
The way that he gets to the outside and makes McKinney look like he's
basically
me. Unbelievable. Looks like he's just playing a different sport. And he kind of was playing a different sport because no one averages 12 yards per carry in the NFL, which is what Achane had done to this point. So Jeff Wilson becomes the pickup clearly here, I think, and Raheem Mostert, you're already starting him. But he will rise in importance as well.
His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, says that Wilson will be activated off the IR. The 21-day practice window will open. Since 2020, when he gets double-digit touches, he's averaging 14.9 fantasy points per game. Jeff Wilson Jr. is. We'd expect I'll have Mostert ranked ahead of him if Wilson's active for this game. You certainly want him because whether he plays this week against Carolina or not, the fact is that he's going to be part of this backfield, especially if Achane is going to miss multiple weeks, which it sounds like he will. He might miss up to 4, if not more. Also, for deeper leagues, Salvon Ahmed, he's had double-digit fantasy points in all 3 career games where he's gotten double-digit touches. If we don't know where Wilson is yet in his rehab, maybe he's on the field for this week, but it might still be a couple of games. He starts practicing and ramping up. So Ahmed would be in line to be the backup to Mostert. And again, given how they're blowing people out, and they're playing the Panthers this week, don't be surprised if Salvon Ahmed gets 15 touches in the second half of this game. Especially, by the way, with Achane hurt, they're going to want to be more, as soon as the game's out of hand, they're going to want to put Mostert on the bench. They're not going to want to risk him.
Right. And Wilson's a guy who can win you weeks because there is a chance just between his own rise in importance. Because, last season on Miami, he had 4 games with 13-plus carries. He had a game with 7 targets. He gets utilized. And also, Raheem Mostert gets hurt every season, basically, and they don't want to. And they don't want to give him 17 carries a game because of that. So there are going to be weeks where Jeff Wilson could be the lead running back in the best offense in football.
He's a mustache right now. It's available in 74% of leagues. Is absolutely insane.
I would say, by the way, we normally just do it by position, but of all the player, he's the number 1 priority ad for me across all positions. I'd rather him than any of the wide receivers. I'd rather him than any of the tight ends or quarterbacks we're talking about. Because, there's a scenario where he's a league winner for you. There's also a scenario where Davante Adams comes back in 3 weeks and Jeff Wilson is the third, third guy in the depth chart. But there's a non-zero chance that Jeff Wilson Jr. takes over this backfield due to potential injury and just performance.
Yeah, there are probably going to be some leagues where Jordan Addison is still available. You probably still take Jordan Addison over Jeff Wilson.
Yeah.
But outside of that, Wilson's the guy.
Looking at the Broncos backfield, Jaleel McLaughlin, he's only available in 41% of leagues. His teammate Samaje Perine available in 55%. They got the Chiefs this week, and the report is Javonte Williams is estimated as limited Monday. They didn't have the official practice, but
it's a short week.
He's trending the right direction. It felt like a close call for the last game. And I think the bigger question if Javonte comes back is what does this do to the effective duo of McLaughlin and Perine?
I think Perine plays exactly. I think Perine plays enough to be annoying to the managers of Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, but I don't think he has any standalone value unless something, again, were to happen to the two of them. He got some passing game work last week. You see it there.
He looked good against the Jets.
Yeah, he did. And they use him in the pass. I think they believe in him in pass pro. They prefer him there. McLaughlin just runs at a different speed.
Yes.
He just looks like the more explosive back. And, the last 2 weeks he's had 22 touches, 193 total yards. He's scored in both games. There was a game, I want to say it was week 2 or week 3, I forget, where he only got 1 carry. It was 1 carry for 5 yards, but it scored. And the point of bringing that up is that Sean Payton, in a goal-to-go situation, trusted McLaughlin not only to have him out on the field, but to give him the ball, and he did convert that as well. So this is somebody that Payton found, an undrafted free agent, and I think they found something. He had a very strong camp. He started to trend up, as camp was ending, and he's earned his way onto the field. Yep. He's getting more. So I prefer McLaughlin to Perine, even though Perine's more readily available. If McLaughlin is available, he'd be my number 2 guy. If he's not available, I'm not saying Perine is my number 2 guy.
Yep.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I get that. Here's the sneaky thing, though, with the Broncos is that they're 1-4. 3 of their next 4 games, this feels impossible, 3 of their next 4 games are against Kansas City and Buffalo. So they're going to lose those games, and then they might beat the Packers in between. But you're looking at a team that's probably 2-7 and that is going to have to shift towards youth, I think. And so, what's the point of playing Samaje Perine if you're 2-7? You've got a talented young guy who's shown plenty. So I think McLaughlin will get more and more run. Yeah,
the only reason, too, is just to keep Russell Wilson upright. Just again, sure. If they just, they
want that, though.
That is a great question.
And
I don't know.
Going on with the Broncos.
A lot going on with the Broncos. Let's ride.
All right, moving over to the Bears. Roschon Johnson available in 59% of leagues. Deontay Foreman available in 93%. They got the Vikings on deck here. The report is Khalil Herbert will miss multiple weeks with the high ankle sprain. Their upcoming schedule, though, Jay, is what you'd want to see for a backfield. Minnesota, Vegas, and then the Chargers here on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and I think the main thing, too, is that the Bears just showed that they could be a competent, kind of explosive offense against your Commanders, Matthew, who have a tendency to do that. But I do think just with how good Fields looked as a passer, with the way DJ Moore got going, I think you just want more shares of this offense than you probably would have thought 2 weeks ago. And Roschon Johnson, I think he is the guy. Obviously, he's dealing, with his own injury, getting concussed in that game. But if he's back, it seemed like he had clearly gone past Deonta Foreman, who was being inactive. But I think Foreman is a worthwhile stash as well.
Foreman's been a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks as well. But to your point about Johnson, he's averaging 5 yards per touch. He's actually caught 91% of his passes. So when they do throw to him, he's not a nothing in the passing game. He has, as Connor likes to say, he has soft hands. I can't speak to that personally, but I'm going to believe you, Connor, when you talk about that. To your point about Foreman, he's had 9 different games with 20 or more touches over the past 2 seasons and averaged almost 12 fantasy points per game. Foreman, again, we haven't really seen him in a Bears uniform this year, but assuming Johnson is cleared from the concussion protocol by Sunday, I would rank them Johnson then Foreman, but they're both there, and there's a chance that Foreman is the starting running back if he doesn't get cleared, if Roschon Johnson doesn't get cleared. I mean, they were using Bassingame, who's their fullback, as the running back last.
Yes.
Because by the way, because also not DJ Dallas, who's the Travis Homer. Sorry, I was trying to third down backs for Seattle.
That's a fair mix-up, though.
Well, but just because they're DJ Dallas and Travis Homer.
I agree.
They're both the third down backs for Seattle.
It's a messy Seattle backfield.
Right, and so anyway, it's Travis Homer. DJ Dallas remains a Seahawk, I believe. But anyway, I think it'll be Johnson and Foreman. But Johnson, we thought even before the Herbert injury that Johnson was trending in the right direction to sort of take a bigger piece of this backfield, and now, with the unfortunate injury to Herbert, he's got a real opportunity to, wait for it, run away with the job.
Yes, indeed. The weird thing, what they were doing is they were giving the first 2 drives of each game to Khalil Herbert and then the third drive to Roschon Johnson. So I don't know if Roschon just moves up into the role where now he gets 2/3 of the drives and Deonta Foreman gets 1/3. Do you think Roschon could be a every down back?
100%. Yep. He was the best pass protector out of the entire rookie class, including Bijan Robinson, pass protector. So that keeps him on the field on third down. He can catch the ball. And he's in between the tackles runner. Yep. So, it might not be pretty.
But again, soft hands.
Soft hands. Mitts.
Mitts.
I like that you're wearing the Buffalo sweater from Buffalo.
we had me doing Jamar Chase in the beginning of the show, and then Justin Jefferson, very sad, awful, and so Justin Jefferson managers drink for free. But I wore this because, Jay, I don't know if you remember this, but today is the 1-year anniversary of our magical night in Buffalo.
Is that right?
Yeah, today is exactly. So I just one night in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I know you don't remember a lot of that night, or you claim not to, but look, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me.
I thought you were going somewhere completely different with that. We were talking about elite wide receivers, and you're going to give some love to Stephon Diggs, but no, you're harking back to our magical night.
To our one night in Buffalo.
One night it was.
Together.
Yeah.
All right. Magical night.
Wings,
But you know what's been great?
Graziano,
What's been great about it? I just want to say this real quickly, and I want to give you some praise on national TV right now. I just want to take a moment here. Like a lot of people after the night, it would have gotten weird, and it hasn't gotten weird. It hasn't affected our friendship.
I think it's gotten better.
No, 100%. It's brought us closer.
Team chemistry.
Exactly. 100%. So I appreciate you. Because sometimes when stuff like that happens, it gets weird. But no, it didn't ruin our friendship at all.
It's just friends hanging out.
Exactly. Just guys doing guy stuff.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, guys being dudes. So a smooth transition to Arizona's backfield. Everybody loves that. Listen, unfortunately, James Conner is expected to miss multiple weeks with a knee injury, and Jonathan Gannon got to talk about the trickle effect of that, most notably for Emari Demercado, who's available in 98% of leagues. Take a listen.
Yeah, he was ready. He's been playing a little bit on third down, and, depending on what happens with the backs here, his role might tick up a little bit, but he's ready to step in there and play football. I kind of gave him a little chat on the sideline, and he was good to go, man. So that was impressive to see, honestly.
I can never look at Jonathan Gannon and just not think of the pew, pew, pew to Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore. It's just forever in my brain. It actually haunts my dreams.
So Michael Smith on Fantasy Football Pregame on Sunday kept on saying these random names, just throwing out random names. I'm not sure, but he would say like Keaton Mitchell, Emari Demercado,
He's a dynasty
Ed Norton,
Well,
just
yeah,
throwing out
exactly.
names. Like, which one of these are football players?
Michael Smith, like a masochist, plays in a 20-team fantasy league. Like, it's just,
a dark place.
It's a dark place. Like, I play in some really deep leagues, but 16 teams is as deep as I go. I go 16 teams, 33-man rosters, but like 20-team,
You're
with
starting
like
third stringers, right?
It's
Close to
it gets
Hoping Kyle Trask gets on the field.
You start Mike White hoping Miami blows a team out, and Mike White gives you 50 yards.
You really listen. In that league, my deep league, I've also had some injury issues, but like I literally had a decision between Justin Watson and Nick Westbrook-Aquino this week.
That is
Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Again,
So Emari Demercado, Mercado, I should say, but yes, he is certainly a deep league guy who has suddenly been thrust into the limelight, as it were, because once James Conner went out with that injury last week, he played 100% of the snaps. Yeah. Now, Keontae Ingram, who was their presumed backup, has missed the last 2 weeks with a neck injury. He got a limited practice in last week on Thursday, Friday. They've been using Rondale Moore in the backfield a little bit, and they just claimed Tony Jones off waivers from the Saints. So it's not only a crowded backfield, but an ugly one that's unclear.
Tony Jones is here to take the touchdown at some point.
You know that's happening,
Yes.
right? You know that's happening. Meanwhile, by the way, you also have a mobile quarterback in Josh Dobbs, who's a threat to run it when they get in close. So I think this is probably a running back by committee, and we'll see sort of how it shakes out. But if you're making a waiver claim tonight, I think Demercado is the head of that committee. Again, he played well last week. They mentioned the third down role. Ingram hasn't been awesome since he's been in the league. I mean, so far, the best thing you can say about Keontae Ingram is that he's better than Corey Clement, who he beat out in camp to become like sort of the backup to James Conner. But, Demercado backed up Kendre Miller in TCU. For people that don't know who this kid is, he's a rookie. Connor.
A credit to him for being here, because I ranked 300 players. That's where they stopped me at NBC Sports.
Yeah.
And you can read that on NBCSports.com. I did not have him in my top 300 because he was Kendre Miller's backup, and he wasn't like Roschon Johnson was to be John Robinson.
Right, yeah.
So the fact that he's made it this far and now is the guy for Jonathan Gannon says a lot. And you noticed it about 2 weeks ago. It's why we did our trade candidates thing. And this isn't a victory lapping James Conner getting hurt, but you looked at Demercado and you're like, he's getting on the field a little bit on third down. So there is third down pass catching role. He only had one catch last week, but I still think that's where he could be most effective in an offense that, as spunky as Arizona has been, Jay, I think they'll be playing from behind where you could see some dump-offs to him.
Yeah, they were less frisky against Cincinnati and kind of came back to who they were. So, I think that Demercado will get work, but I wouldn't be, blowing my fat badge.
No.
Yeah, again, I think it is a committee. I think he's the head of the committee. But, if you get down this far and you're still looking for somebody that'll get some run over the next few weeks, Demercado is a guy. By the way, on the 1-year anniversary of our night in Buffalo, I appreciate you using the word frisky. Let's move on to the other names on the list here, Connor.
Yeah.
Other guys that we've been talking about stashing for a while, they're still out there in way too many leagues.
I don't understand this with Tyjae Spears. 76% of
we're begging you. We've been begging you for weeks. Pick up Tyjae Spears. Why won't you listen to us? 50% snap rate this season. He's splitting time with Derrick Henry, right? He's got more receptions, almost as many receiving yards. Played better last week as well. Right, he's played over 50% of the snaps in 4 to 5 games this season. He's had at least 55 yards from scrimmage in 3 of the past 4, including 4 targets in 4 or 5 games this year. He's their passing down back. I don't know if Derrick Henry has hit a wall or not, or if it's just the offensive line, but he hasn't seen, with the exception of basically one game, he hasn't been King Henry this year. And whether they're trying to limit his workload to keep him fresher, but Spears looks like the more spry running back. I mean, I don't want to ever, never want to doubt King Henry, but Tyjae Spears looks pretty good.
Jay, quickly on Kendre Miller, 12 rushes last week, so the volume's there. He's available in 88% of leagues. We knew at some point this backfield will lean on him. Any interest as a deeper stash here?
I think so, because he also had the 4 receptions for 53 yards. And the good thing with Miller, the upcoming schedule for the Saints, Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Chicago. So overall, pretty favorable for a team that is trending up after that game against New England.
Barry, our last one, Justice Hill. He's available in 72% of leagues. He's coming off a week where he did catch 4 passes. He had that brutal fumble on the screen.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is he is a thing in the Ravens offense right now.
And what's weird is that we think of Gus Edwards as sort of the finisher, but Justice Hill's had at least 3 red zone touches in 3 of the 4 games he's seen. So you know the passing game work, but they're not scared to use him when they get in close. Now, Gus Edwards is still a thing, and also you mentioned Keaton Mitchell, the undrafted rookie free agent that was kind of a camp sensation. He's been hurt. He's eligible to come off the IR. He hasn't been activated yet by the Ravens, but for deeper leagues, he's probably worth a flyer as well. But yeah, Justice Hill, who's 72% available, I think he's a viable flex guy as we expect this. I mean, listen, if you're Lamar Jackson after last week, are you throwing to your wide receivers? You're just like, you know what, let me just give it to Justice Hill and run it myself. You guys do cardio. You guys just run wind sprints.
Tough week for Lamar.
Yeah. Tough week for Lamar's pass catchers as well.
7 drops. They dropped 7 passes from Lamar Jackson.
I believe it's the most in the past 2 years.
Right, including like ones in the end zone. Like Aguilar, he catches that.
Again?
Right, well, he's just like, like, well, so I have many impressions, right? So here's Aguilar, whoa, boom, right? And then here's Rashad Bateman, huh, boom, boom. I'm in the end zone, right? And then here's Zay Flowers. I'm open, and he just falls down. And like if he just stayed in stride, that would have hit him for a touchdown. I mean, like just
stay on your feet.
It was no bueno.
Let's recap Barry's Week 6 top running back waiver targets. We talked about Jeff Wilson, the must stash. He might be playable quite soon guy. Roschon Johnson, Deontay Foreman, Emari Demercado for the Cardinals while James Conner's hurt. Tyjae Spears, still an effective stash. Kendre Miller, same could be said for him. And then Justice Hill. With that, let's jump right into the quarterbacks here. Matthew Stafford, it's only available in 43% of leagues, so maybe just a mention if he's out there in your league, Matthew. I think you would like him this week against Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, they resurrected Joe Burrow. They allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. He's top 5 in passing yards and pass attempts. He's got Cooper Kupp back, Puka Nacua there as well. After that, how about Russell Wilson? We expect him to have to throw against the Kansas City Chiefs on the short week. By the way, he's a top 10 fantasy quarterback this week. For all the dunking on Nathaniel Hackett, the fact of the matter is that since Hackett left Denver, Russell Wilson has been a QB1 as well. My boy, future Hall of Famer Sam Howell at Atlanta. He's had at least 19 fantasy points in 3 of the 4 last games. When they make Desmond Ridder look awesome, Sam Howell's going to have to throw against the Falcons. And then Gardner Minshew, who's going to be the guy for the Colts for the foreseeable future, playing the Jaguars, who allow over 19 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks this season, top 10 in the NFL.
Yep, and look, the thing with Gardner Minshew as well, Colts have a very easy schedule the rest of the way, so I expect that he will be able to put up some touchdown numbers.
Jay, let's look at tight ends here, starting with Commanders tight end Logan Thomas. He was available in 84% of leagues. Monster game against the Bears. Yeah, there you go. The monster game against the Bears, and he's got the Falcons, Giants, Eagles, who tight ends are effective against, and then the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't understand the target and reception breakdown tree at all in Washington, but it is skewing towards Logan Thomas for some reason, so he is a valuable pickup. Tyler Conklin.
Jokes aside, the reason is because he's under pressure. Because seriously, like he holds the ball too long. Yeah. The offensive line is a disaster, and he holds the ball too long. So those two things combined, it's just like it's middle of the field stuff. That's why Curtis Samuel. That's why Logan Thomas. He's not letting routes develop or not having time for McLaughrin and Dotson to develop routes.
Just as a general rule, anytime a tight end gets 11 targets, they should be rostered the following week. Tyler Conklin against Philadelphia as well for your Jets, Connor. He had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 67 yards against Denver.
Zach's leaning on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Again, same thing.
Death taxes, right, and death taxes start your tight ends against Philly.
And then Jonnu Smith, I don't understand the Atlanta offense at all, but apparently now Desmond Ridder can support 2 tight ends and a wide receiver as well as Bijan Robinson. I think the strides that Ridder showed in that game against Houston bode well for that passing offense going forward. Just the level of competence.
He's been on the road, he's a disaster, but he's been good at home. This game this week is at home. He will light up my Commanders' defense because they're so brutal.
Yes.
Make no mistake. 20% target share over the last 4 weeks for Jonnu Smith, by the way. And then Dalton Schultz, to your point, whatever, he did get 10 targets. Now, they're playing New Orleans. The Saints are brutal against tight ends. He'll be on my hate list this week, but in terms of the Texans' offense is better than we think. Dalton Schultz has been a fantasy factor before in his career. Don't love him this week, but he's now scored in back-to-back games. Feels like he's starting to gain a connection with C.J. Stroud.
If you need a defense this week, you could look at the Vikings against the Bears because they're available in 95% of leagues. But how about the Falcons against the Commanders? Like you said, Matthew, that Commanders offensive line combined with Sam Howell holding on the ball way too long. Falcons could put up a lot of sack totals in fantasy. And finally, the Rams against Arizona. Josh Dobbs has been pretty spunky this year, but the bottom line is Arizona still has some struggles. And these are the ones that are just widely available across all fantasy leagues right now.
100%. Yeah.
All right, before we take a break, let's quickly look at the drop bulls because you like all these players we're talking about adding, even if you need a defense, but you got to drop somebody. These are drop bull players owned in over 50% of leagues, starting with Daniel Jones. He's not only hurt, the Giants' offense is horrific right now. Gus Edwards, A.J. Dillon, and Dalvin Cook, those guys just can't get anything going, especially if Aaron Jones returns for Dillon and Brees' backfield for the Jets. Tutu Atwell, Elijah Moore at wide receiver. Hunter Henry puts up the goose egg in a disastrous game for all of New England's offense. And Pat Freiermuth, who's been hurt, combined with the Steelers' pass game struggling.
So these are not must drops. These are just if you have to drop and you know, we don't mind it. Again, Packers on a bye this week. So Dillon, which he fell into the end zone. We'll talk about this coming up. But like he has not been that effective. And then Freiermuth, ideally what you're doing is you're putting him in your IR spot. Pittsburgh is the other team on a bye this week. But if you don't have an IR spot, chances are you're not, unless you're, you know, in a crazy deep league, chances are you could probably risk, if you had to drop Freiermuth, you could probably risk it, you know, because again, he's not going to play this week.
More depth at tight end than anticipated as well.
And he hasn't been great this year, let's be honest. So, again, I'm not advocating it, but if you're truly up against it, don't hate it either.
We're going to take our first break. When we're back, of course, our Monday Night Football breakdown. A lot of Jakobi Meyers.
Not a lot of Davante Adams.
Not a lot of Davante Adams.
That was disappointing.
Jordan Love, the Packer quarterback. There's the shotgun snap. They rush 4. He gets out of harm's way. Throws down the far side. End zone. Intercepted. Intercepted on the play. Robertson in the end zone. Far side. Oh, flag. The Raiders are going to win it.
The Raiders game-sealing interception to beat the Packers. A tough night for Jordan Love, and we will get there in a minute. But Davante Adams, guys.
It is hard to find love in Vegas. I know many that have searched.
Sometimes.
I mean,
long-lasting love.
Lasting love. You can find transient love. You can rent love. Yeah. But it's hard to.
Yes.
Yeah, but
it's hard to be a homeowner.
Yeah, it's 100%. Jordan Love was bad. Anyway,
yeah.
What do you want? You want to get done?
Yeah, that's what I want. So.
Okay.
Yeah, tough game.
I just want to make love and Las Vegas jokes. Yeah.
Jay, tough game for Davante Adams in a revenge game.
Connor's entire job. You know what? You know what it is, Jay. You know what I feel so bad for Connor. The truth of the matter. You've been here for a long time.
And the game recap is
gone. You were working at NBC Sports before I showed up. So you're kind of grandfathered in. But you know, Connor came after I did. So poor Connor. All Connor's trying to do is like, I got to keep this job. I got to keep the show on the rails. And not get fired.
Yes.
Because I sort of feel like, you know.
You're going to lean into the joke a little bit, but not
too much.
Poor
Connor. Poor Connor.
Yeah.
Connor, well, because Connor's young.
Yeah.
He's engaged. Like, he's
probably
starting
not the rope you have as well.
Right. I'm like, and listen, I'm towards the end here. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
If I get fired tomorrow, it was a good run, right?
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Yeah.
But poor Connor, like, he's building a family. He's trying to build a career.
Yes.
Like, poor kid.
Anyway. That's why we still rent in the area. We don't buy. Because we just don't know.
You never know.
We just
smart.
don't know. All right.
Davante Adams, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 45 yards. I mean, they didn't really have to do much in this game, and it just, when he wasn't covered, it's just the Jakobi Meyers show, and you had a good call, Connor. Wouldn't you back him over 3.5 receptions?
4.5.
4.5?
Plus money when I got it, but it
Well, he got 10 targets, 7 receptions. That was done very, very quickly. And Jakobi Meyers just continues to show that he's a start every week fantasy wide receiver.
I thought it was super interesting when you watch the game. So Lisa Salters at some point during the game interviewed Josh McDaniels. And they asked, and it was very generic coach speak. What do you got to do? But one of the questions she asked was, she goes, I think this was after the second half. She was just like, hey, you know, like whatever, 1 catch for whatever yards it was for Davante Adams. How do you get him more involved? And he just said some generic thing like, well, it's all about running the right play. And so I wonder if like just the way he said it was running the right play just made me think like, I wonder if just Garoppolo just isn't reading the defenses right and like he didn't want to throw his quarterback under the bus. They obviously paid a lot of attention to Adams not wanting him to go off against his former team. Every game prior to last night, he had a 34% target share. bad day at the office for Davante Adams. It is what it is. I'm not worried about it. They're on a bye. They'll look at the tape. They'll get better. Pick your coach's cliche.
Yeah. The big story is the Packers' offense. Jordan Love was terrible.
Brutal.
His worst game of his career.
Chris Towers tweeted out, to paraphrase, he has a bit of Drew Lock in him, Jordan Love, where he looks like a quarterback as he moves around, but then the throws just don't go where you want them to go. So he was terrible, 3 interceptions, and the whole passing offense suffered as a result. I don't understand how Romeo Doubs only got 1 reception for 4 yards. Christian Watson catches the bomb, gets the 7 targets. He's probably the guy you want at receiver now over Doubs. And then Luke Musgrave, he also gets some work, Matthew.
Yeah, he did. I think one of the concerns for Love, first game this season without a passing touchdown, he completed just 25% of his passes and throws 10 yards or more downfield. But for me, the biggest concern is again, as we sort of talk about this with Sam Howell, they missed David Bakhtiari on that line. He was under, credit to Max Crosby, who had a great game.
Took over the game.
But I don't feel like that offensive line, and A.J. Dillon has been sort of running in molasses too, but he's also getting hit at the line of scrimmage a lot. That line is a concern to me for the passing offense, especially because Watson and Doubs and even Musgrave, they're young players. None of them are established enough where you feel any competent quarterback can get, they need to get, I don't know. Let's see what they look like after the bye. We don't have to really talk about it, but just if there's one positive out of the schedule, they get Denver.
Yep.
So they get 2 weeks to prepare for the Broncos. So
big game for Aaron Jones.
Exactly. Let's not panic until if they lay an egg after the bye week against Denver, then I think we can hit the panic button. But certainly eyebrows should be raised for all Packers offensive players other than Aaron Jones, who didn't play.
We'll take our last break. When we're back, it's back to the futures, including offensive and defensive player of the year, right after this.
Yeah.
Don't forget, on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. All right, let's jump into a little back to the futures. Jay, starting with you. What are you looking at? I've heard some offensive
for the
player of
record,
year
I don't
chatter.
believe we've officially licensed that logo. I don't.
It's licensed. It's licensed. Yes. Offensive player of the year, kind of with Justin Jefferson going down. This market is a lot more wide open. The guy I like is Jamar Chase at 15-1. His odds, there's too much of a gap between him and Tyreek Hill. Jamar Chase can track down Tyreek Hill. I think the Bengals will go on a run. Matthew, what do you like?
You know what? The Commanders' win total is 6.5. And I don't know how they get 5 more wins.
Yeah.
Look at their upcoming schedule. They're on the road at Atlanta. They're going to lose that. They got 2 against the Giants. They'll split those. They got 2 against Philly. Those are both losses. They're at New England. That's a loss. At Seattle. That's a loss. They still have Dallas twice. Miami. They're at the Rams. They're at the Jets in Week 16. The Jets will have it figured out by then as well. The Niners in Week 17. Stop it. Give me the under on 6.5 wins.
Go bet Aiden Hutchinson, Defensive Player of the Year. He's plus 1,500. He leads pass rushers and pressures by 6. That's it for us.
It's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew. Happy anniversary, Jay Croucher. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.